Our goal this week is to go through how to set up your own server so that you can set up a web app. And today we're focusing specifically on the server part. Yesterday we talked about the domain part. And if you want to get a domain through name.com, which is what I recommend, there is a link in the description of this video. Please join in on YouTube if you can, because I'm trying to keep the closest eye on the comments that are coming in through YouTube. And I'm briefly looking at the others, but let's try to, yeah, okay. So it's all good. Awesome. So you can hear me now. Excellent. Thank you. So the first thing that we need to do after you have your domain, and if you didn't get your domain, then this is what I'm going to recommend. You're going to go to duckdns.org real quick. I'm going to paste this in the chat as well, and just click sign in with Twitter or GitHub or Facebook or whatever. And here we go. I'm going to paste that in the chat. Okay. And you can get a free domain here, but I don't recommend this. This isn't something that you're going to be putting on your resume, and this isn't, they don't have the same tools available. It is very simple for what it does. And I'll actually use this a little bit today to show you. But you need a domain. It doesn't really matter what the name is. I recommend going to name.com to get it. The other thing that I just said before we started is that you need to have a GitHub account as a coder. It's just a lot of the work that you do, you'll end up interacting with GitHub. It's kind of like Facebook, but for code, but a little more professional. So maybe LinkedIn for code. In any case, you're going to create a file to keep notes. I recommend that you call that file beyondcodenotes.md. And you'll understand why .md is important later. It's Markdown. We're going to talk about that later in the week. This is where I recommend that you keep your notes. It's going to be easy to get back to. It's gist.github.com. So go ahead and open up a gist, start taking notes there, keep track of the domain, your domain name, anything that we're going through that you think you need. And also, I was saying earlier, if you use the link that's in the description for DigitalOcean, you'll get $100 or 60 days free for server access. And then it's just $5 a month after that, which is basically as cheap as it gets. And DigitalOcean has the best service that I have ever used. So even if you found some service that is $1 cheaper, it's not worth stepping over dollars to pick up pennies. The time that you save and the ease of use is just bar none. So this is what I highly, highly recommend. Now, with that out of the way, the next thing that I was going into was that your computer has a unique key. In fact, your user account on your computer has a unique key. Whether you're using Mac or Windows or Linux, you have a unique key. And when you interact with servers, you don't want to use a password. This is very insecure. It's a very easy way to get hacked. Instead, you use what we call a key. And there's a public part of a key, which you can publish everywhere. You put it on Facebook, you put it on Twitter, you put it on wherever you want. In fact, there are some coder social network programs that ask you to post your public key on your social services to help verify you. We're going to get your public key for your computer. And the way we're going to do that is with this command. So you're going to open up Terminal. And if you're on Windows, go to webinstall.dev/sshpubkey. And I'll post this link in the chat, standalone, although you can get it from that command. And you'll get a slightly different version of this command that's intended to work on Windows. Because on Mac and Linux, it's like this. Windows, it's a little different. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Enter. And I get back here. This is my key, all the way from SSH, all the way down to, in my case, it looks kind of like an email. It's my username. This is called the key comment. It's my username and my computer name. My computer's called Beast. So you're going to go ahead and copy this. Also, sometimes you'll need it for other things. The command, what you ran did, just installed and ran a command called sshpubkey. So now anytime you want, you can run sshpubkey and it will print this out to the screen again. So if you can remember SSH, hyphen, hit tab a couple times, you'll see there's a bunch of different SSH commands, and pubkey is the command that we just installed. It prints out to the screen. It's the same thing every time. And then it also copies your public key into your downloads folder if you need to upload it. So we're going to go into DigitalOcean. I didn't show me logging in, but I assume you can go to digitalocean.com. You can figure out how to create an account. You will need to put in your credit card number, but like I said, if you sign up with the referral link, you got $100 credit. And if not, don't go. I see so many people spending so much time and energy and what equates to money looking for free alternatives to services. Definitely just pay the $5 a month and be happy. This is a good deal. So I'm in my account. The first thing that I recommend that you do, which is not strictly related to setting up our server, but you go into settings, and then in your account settings, I'm looking at a team page, but this is not very much different from the regular page. You're going to see a section that's secure sign-in, and you want to turn that to enabled. You're going to need an app called Authy, and you don't need to do this right now, or if you're watching this later, go ahead and pause the video and do it. But you should do this because if you do not secure your account with two-factor authentication, again, super easy to hack into and super easy to do things that are going to cost you money. And that's why these sites encourage you to do these things. So you want to turn on two-factor authentication, and there's an app you can get for your phone, whether it's iPhone or Android, called Authy, A-U-T-H-Y. I'll put a link to that real quick. We'll actually go to the website. I believe it's just authy.com. Yep. And they also have a browser plugin and some other things. So this is what I recommend. We're going to go ahead and put that there. And I'm just going to do a quick check to see if I see any other comments. Nope, I don't see any comments or questions yet. All right, so I'm going to move ahead. So I'm closing out the account page. We're back to the main page. You may actually have what I call the zero page, where it kind of forces you through the do your first action. Your first action is going to be to create a droplet. So if you see the welcome page that has the create droplet action, that's what I'm doing right here. So we're going to click on create droplet. Let me see if I can make the screen a little bit bigger. And we want to choose Ubuntu Linux. This is kind of the standard Linux that most people are using. I'm not going to go into the specifics about it, but it's just kind of the standard. We just want a basic server. We don't need anything special. And we can go down. They have these premium options that they're adding. You can go down and just regular old Intel system with the $5 a month lowest cost service, one CPU, 25 gigabytes SSD, terabyte of transfer. And then I recommend, it probably will select a data center that's close to you. You just want to pick one that's close to you. So if you're on the East Coast, pick one of the New York ones. If you're somewhere in Europe, pick Frankfurt or whatever is closest to you. Now, this is where things get a little bit interesting. We want to make sure that IPv6 is turned on and that monitoring is turned on. There's no reason not to turn those on. And we want to make sure we're using SSH key authentication, and you may need to click to add new key. So then you would paste your key in here, and I've already copied mine. So I'm not going to add this, but I would paste my key in here, and then the name would be typically the name that's in the comments. So mine is aj.secure@beast.local. Okay, so if I needed to add that, that's how I do it. In my case, I already have this added. So I'm just going to check both my laptop and my desktop here. And then we're going to go down, and the host name for this should be your domain name. So in this particular case, even though I showed you using name.com yesterday, I'm going to use beyondcode.duckdns.org today, just because I was already logged into that. And .org is actually an insecure domain. It's an old domain, whereas .dev is a secure domain, as well as .app. There's some stuff that I want to show you that it's easier to show with an insecure domain because it's easier to look at text when it's not encrypted. We don't need to add any tags on this. And I recommend that you go ahead and click Enable Backups. I'm not going to click it because I'm about to delete this thing, but anywhere that you have work, always enable backups. There's other backup systems we're going to be talking about later today, or not today, probably next week is what I meant to say. But right now, I would say go ahead and click that, pay the extra $1 a month. It's worth it. All right. Once we've created this, it's going to take about 30 seconds, and we're going to get an IP address. So yesterday we talked about IPv4 and IPv6. And today we're going to take both types of addresses and we are going to use them in our domain service. Hopefully, I think DuckDNS allows that. Yeah, DuckDNS does allow both. Okay, so we will be doing that. And while this is loading up, I'm going to go ahead and take a look at comments. If you've got a question, it would be great if you go ahead and ask it now. While I'm looking at the comments and we're waiting for this to load. I'm checking on YouTube primarily, but I'm also trying to switch back and forth between Facebook and Twitch. All right, I don't see anything right now. So we're going to copy this IP address, the one that looks fairly simple, like a phone number. That's why I'm classifying as fairly simple. Looks kind of like a phone number. That's the one that we're going to copy first. And if you are on name.com, if you remember, I'm just going to describe this right now since I don't have it open right now and I don't want to take the time to go log in. Well, actually, let me actually do that because I think that I already did my two-factor authentication, and so it should just let me log in without asking me to pull out my phone and do all of that. So let's see what we get here. Oh, yep. Okay, I want to do that now. I'm going to go to settings because I actually logged into the wrong account. I'm going to go into the sub account and I'm going to log into the test account that I set up for us to do this. Okay, so here you'll see My Domains. You go to My Domains. From there, you click on whatever domain you registered. I registered goodtimes.dev. I guess I'll do this in both. And then you go to Manage DNS. Hopefully you can see that right here. Let me try to make this a little bigger. You go to Manage DNS. And so this is where we can change. We're going to do an A record, a quad A record, and then we're also going to do an A name and a C name. So all the things that we did yesterday, we're going to put all of them in. So here what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new host called SRV for server. And I'm going to bring over my IP address. And I'm going to select type A. Sorry, I'm trying to make the screen big, and so some of these things are getting squished out of the way. It's type A, which is IPv4, A for address. And I'm going to give it a time to live of 300, which is 5 minutes, meaning that this will only last for 5 minutes before it refreshes. We don't want it to last for a day or hours, because while we're developing and doing stuff, we're going to change this back and forth. We don't want it to be stuck and then have to wait for an hour to test something. So at most, if we need to make some changes, it'll only take 5 minutes for those changes to update. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to put that A record in, I'm going to go back, and what I'm going to do is click on my server here. I hope that you saw that. Let me go back. So there's my server. I'm going to click on the name of it, and then here we see the IPv6 address. And this is a little more complex looking because it's a mix of numbers and the letters A through F, and it can have a maximum of something like 64 of them. So I'll go into why that is later, but for right now, we're just going to add that as a quad A record. So I'm also going to name this SRV, and I'm going to put in the IPv6 address, and I'm going to put in 300 for the time to live, and I'm going to add the record. So now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to change my secondary level domain. That is, so we have .dev is the top level domain, goodtimes is the secondary domain. I'm going to change that to an A name record. Now, not all hosts support this, not all domain name services support this, but name.com does, so I'm going to use it. And we're going to leave host blank because this is just goodtimes.dev without any subdomain, without any www or SRV or anything. And I'm going to change the answer of this to be srv.goodtimes.dev. And we're going to set the TTL on that to be 300. And I'm going to click update. So what this means is that the record for goodtimes.dev is pointing to both of these. So if something needs an IPv4 address, it's actually going to get this as the answer. If something needs an IPv6 address, it's going to get this as the answer. Now I'm going to go ahead and delete some of these dummies that I had there. And I am going to leave www.goodtimes.dev as a CNAME. And we went over what the difference between what those are yesterday. So I'm not going to do that again today. You can check out the channel for the live stream from yesterday. Let me take a second to look at comments. Do we have any more comments or questions coming in. And again, I'm looking for comments primarily on YouTube, so jump over there. You'll see a link in the description of that if you're not there already. And now what we're going to do is I'm going to update the DuckDNS as well with the same numbers here. So I'm going to have two domains, beyondcode.duckdns.org and my goodtimes.dev. They are both going to be pointing to this server. So let me update. Whoop, what happened there? Did I get logged out? Let me log back in here. Let me make sure that that IP address was correct. Nope, it gave me the wrong one there. So let me go back over here and update this again. It must have logged me out because I took too long. All right. So now beyondcode.duckdns.org and goodtimes.dev are both pointing to the IP addresses of this server. And the server's name is beyondcode.duckdns.org. This is actually important that the server name is the primary domain name, only in a few cases, which we won't go in today, but it does have some significance. So we've got that there. So now we're ready to log into our server. And I am going to, I think we're probably safe to close out of this actually. I'm just going to leave it in the background for now. Let me close out a couple of these tabs. We're going to go back to our terminal. And now I'm going to be able to show you how we're actually going to create a new user with our server before we even log in. So back at webinstall.dev, I have a little helper script for us, which I'm posting the link in the YouTube right now. It's called SSH add user. And what we're going to do is copy this, and we're going to run it not on this computer, but we're going to run it on our server. So I'm going to do SSH root at beyondcode.duckdns.org. That's my server. It's already set up. It's running. I've got the IP address. I've got this domain pointing to the IP address. And then I'm going to put a single quote. I'm going to paste the full command that I want to have it run. And then I'm going to put a single quote. So using SSH normally lets us log into a server. It's called Secure Shell. In this case, rather than logging in, it's just going to run a command and return back to us. So I'm going to hit enter, and that's going to run. It asks me, are you sure you want to connect to the server? It's the first time you've ever connected to it. Yes, I'm sure. And then it's actually asking me, I set a password on my key. And now I entered the password. Unfortunately, it looks like a bunch of garbage went on the screen. That's just because my terminal is too small, so the lines aren't long enough, because I'm trying to make this easy for you to see. But it just gave me some output. In this particular case, I don't need, normally I say read the output, pay attention to it. In this particular case, the things that it's asking to do were actually already done on the server, and we're going to be logging back into it. So it's going to be exactly the way that we'd like it to be. So now I'm going to, what this did was create a user named app. And we created a user because by default on DigitalOcean, the user that it gives you is an administrator user. And for a variety of reasons that I won't go into right now, you don't want to log into a server and run as the administrative user. In short, it can cause you to accidentally mess things up. We want to run as a non-administrator user. So that command just created that. And if you want to learn more about it, I have it explained on the web install page, webinstall.dev/ssh-add user. But that's not quite the point right now. We just want to get things rolling. So we're going to SSH, and you can do this from Windows, by the way. I know I'm doing it on Mac. I don't know if I said that before or after the audio was unmuted, but this works perfectly well on Windows. So you can do SSH app at beyondcode.duckdns.org. You're going to substitute for your domain. And then it's going to ask me for my key again. Okay, and here we are. So now I am logged into my server. We're almost done with the session for tonight. It's running a little bit longer than I expected. I apologize for that, especially because we started with the muted audio. So what we're going to get to tonight, now that we're logged into the server, is we're going to install a couple of tools, and we're just going to get basically a what I call the hello world, the simplest example that we can get with a web server. Okay? So I'm going to create a folder, and we're going to go over some of the bash skills later, but we're going to create a folder that is srv www, and I'm going to call mine beyondcode.duckdns.org. I recommend that you use your domain, of course, and I'll copy this over into the YouTube chat. So here we go. And inside of here, we're going to create a file. And the way that we're going to create a file is with the command echo. You saw this a little bit in the very first video, or maybe it was the second, just a way to have the computer print something back to the screen. We can also use echo to create a file, and I'll show you how. So we're going to create a file called hello, or not called, with the contents hello world. We're going to use single quotes. So I've got echo space hello world, and then I'm going to put a double greater than sign, which is basically saying rather than putting this out to the screen, we're going to put this into some place, and I'm going to give it a file name, and I'm going to call it index.html. So I'm copying and pasting that path name. Let me see if I can resize this so that you can see easier. Okay. And then I'm going to put index.html. So again, you can copy and paste this, but you want to change it out for your domain name that you're using. Okay, I think I put both those commands there. Great. Okay, so I'm going to hit enter. Now, if I use the command cat, which historically is named that way, short for concatenate, won't go into it, but easy to remember because it's cat. So we use the command cat, and we can read the contents of a file. Echo allows us to type something and get it back or send it to a file. Cat allows us to read things from one or more files. And this will become actually very useful in a couple of days. So we can see that our file has plain text in it that is hello world. Now, right now, if I go to my website, I don't have a web server. I have a server, but I don't have a program that is acting as a web server here. So I need to create that function. And as I talked about earlier, we're going to use the server called Caddy because it is the simplest, easiest server to use. And we're just going to get this to the point of serving this hello page, and then we'll move on, and I'll connect with you again later throughout the week. But what we'll do right now is first, before we even do that, we're going to use another program called netcat, which is easy to remember because it's cat, just like cat, but network. Sometimes the program is in C, and sometimes it's all spelled out netcat. Usually it's more common for the program to be called NC. So I'm going to do NC-V, which actually means verbose, and then -L, which is for listen. When a server is running, we call it listening. And then I'm going to put 3000 for a port number. Now, the reason that I'm doing this, interesting. Let me try that again. Very interesting. Let me go ahead. I'm going to do something else real quick. Something went wrong, as often happens when you're doing things live. I might have made a typo. Who knows? I'm just going to go ahead and ping beyondcode.duckdns.org. That looks right. Let's see. Am I doing this wrong? Am I doing this wrong? Whoops. I don't know why. Let's see if we can ping google.com. We can ping google.com. Can we ping beyond? I think I know what's happening here, and I don't know how to fix it. We're going to go ahead and move on. What I was going to demonstrate was how we can operate a web server by hand. Netcat basically allows us to type a file. So I was going to open up the browser. with Netcat open, visit this web server, we were going to see the text of the browser coming through, basically asking, hey, are you this website? And then I was going to type by hand, yes, it's me, and hit enter a couple of times, and then it was going to show up on the page. Since I'm having a little bit of technical difficulty, which is probably related to a little bit of IPv6 mix-up, I'm going to skip that, and we're just going to go ahead and grab Caddy. So we've actually already installed a program called Webby just by using those curl commands to webinstall.dev. So I can run the command Webby Caddy, and Webby stands for web installer. So it's going to install Caddy. So that was quick and easy and painless. And we are going to create what's called a Caddy file, which is just a configuration for this web server. So I've got a little bit of a cheat sheet up here on webinstall.dev/caddy. I'll go ahead and send that out to y'all. There you go. And I'm going to take a quick look to see if we have any other comments or questions. All right, none so far. All right. What we're going to do is, this looks like a lot of stuff. We're not going to go through all of what this is. We're just going to take this example that I've given of a Caddy file, and I'll step through it a little bit later, but to conserve time, I'm not going to step through it as much as I would have liked tonight. And we're going to just change out example.com for our domain and everything else. And we're going to change the path to the website that we created, the Hello World website. So what I'm going to do is use Vim, and we've talked about Vim before. So if you haven't seen it, watch that, but I'll step you through this a little bit. So I'm going to do Vim space Caddy file with a capital C. I'm going to hit enter, and then I'm going to hit the letter A, which is going to put me in insert after mode. And then I'm going to do my normal Command V for paste. And then I'm going to go through, you're going to have to do this by hand because I'm not going to explain this to you right now. So sorry, but I'm just going to go through and rename all the places where it says example.com to beyondcode.duckdns.org. Yeah, that's what I'm changing it to. Changing it there, 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 and there. And then I am changing the file path to be the path that we created earlier, serve www beyondcode.duckdns.org. So everything else in here, I'll step through this super quick. The first part just redirects from www to the bare domain. So if you type in www.beyondcode.duckdns.org, it'll go to beyondcode.duckdns.org. The second piece is how it should log. We'll go over that a little bit later, that we should turn on some basic normal stuff, gzip. Later on this week, we are going to set up a very small API, which is part of what the web app needs. And that's what defines a web app, is a website that has an API. And so we have what's called a reverse proxy in there. Again, not going to go over that tonight. And then we have a directive that basically says, if a request comes in from a browser and it's not looking for the API, then it should look for the file in the path that we gave as the root path, which we define right here. So this is a little bit of boilerplate. I'm not expecting you to understand it. It's just a copy and paste at this point. Later on, we can go into it in a little more detail. So I'm going to escape :WQ is how we get out of there. So A or I is how you go into the edit mode. HJKL or the arrow keys is how you move around. And escape :W quit is bang, is how you get out. Okay, so now if I cat my Caddy file, we can see that I've got a Caddy file. So now there's one more step that I need to do that is listed in this README, which is I actually need to change the permissions on the server. And that is right here. I'll copy the Caddy server. I'll copy this into the chat. Whoops, did I hit an extra? No. Okay, good. So if we copy and paste that, you won't notice it do anything. Basically, only an administrator is allowed to run a proper web server on the correct ports, they're called. This command says allow the app user to be, well, any user to be able to run Caddy as a web server on whatever ports are necessary. Again, we're not going to go into all that tonight. We're just trying to quickly get through a lot of the steps so you have a server set up. And I'd recommend that you go back from your notes, watch the video again, go through this whole process again. Knowing this is something that differentiates you from other candidates for a job. So many people take shortcuts where they use what ends up being a lot more learning in the long run, but what is advertised as a quote-unquote simple tool to publish a website, and they don't learn the basics of how a domain works, how a server works, how to use basic commands like to create a folder, to create a file, stuff we've gone over tonight. So this is really important, and it's why I take the time to cover it. I know it's like drinking from a fire hose, but it's one of those things where we're going to slog through it, we're going to be able to get to productivity, and then we're going to come back to it again later and you'll learn more about it. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and do caddy run --config /caddy file, which is exactly what we have in our cheat sheet here. Hopefully you can read that. So I created webinstall.dev for you guys so that we could have really easy shortcuts to get things done quickly and to have documentation to refer back to. We're going to go ahead and run that. You're going to see a whole bunch of stuff fly by. Don't worry about it. The point is, now, if we go to beyondcode.duckdns.org, what did I do wrong here? Let's see. I got a 404 page, which is good, meaning that it got to the server. Okay, no web page was found. Beyondcode.duckdns.org. I'm going to go ahead and cancel out of this. Sorry that this didn't work on the first try. Sometimes we mess things up. Okay. Beyondcode.duckdns. Oops. duckdns.org. Yes. 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 And let's double check that this is, oh, I know what went wrong. I had a special character in there that's a shortcut for /home/username. The username that we created is called app. This is kind of the standard default non-administrator username that you'll see a lot of people use. And so the path where we are when we log in is in the users folder. And so that users folder is /home/app. So I'm going to go ahead and escape :WQ bang for right quit bang again. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm just hitting up to get through my history here if you see me going through something quickly. And then I'm going to go back. It's running. And here we are. Hello world. So hopefully you got here with me. If not, please ask me questions. Let me know what was confusing, what didn't go well for you. Go through the video again from scratch, delete your server, empty out, delete all the records in your name.com or your duckdns. Go through that whole process again, just to kind of cement it into your brain, update your notes, make your notes as good as you can. And if you would, please post a link to your notes in the comments. That would be really awesome. And a couple of other bits of spiel before we close this out for the night. And sorry, this was super long. I did not intend it to be so long, but it's the nature of the beast. We had to take enough time to get through it. Thank you so much for joining in. I hope to see you again tomorrow. I hope that you can come back to me with some questions. Leave those in the comments. I want to let you know again, Digital Ocean, if you want to get that $100 or 60 days free, there's a link in the description for my affiliate code. I get a little bit of kickback on that, and so do you. There's also an affiliate link, or technically a referral link, for name.com. And I've asked them if they'll do a little thing where you can get a kickback like $1 off. It doesn't cost you any more. I do get a little kickback on it. I haven't heard back from them about that yet. Currently, their program is just, I get a kickback, but I want to make sure you get one too. So hopefully we'll get that updated. But for right now, don't fret over $1. Just go ahead and get it, whether you use my link or not. And then if you think you want to follow on this, which I hope you do, be sure to subscribe, especially on YouTube. I'm going to try to be posting these around 7:45 every night. Most of them are going to be a little bit shorter. Some of them are going to be a little longer when they're workshop style like this. There's links to Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and if you're interested in joining in on the super secret members only Discord, go ahead and let me know. I'd be happy to let you in and we can have a little bit of chat there. And also, one last thing, I'm doing a little bit of a lifestyle channel. You're probably not interested in it, but if you are, there's some links to that in the comments. All right, with all that, thank you very much again for joining in. If it was good, like and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time. Adios.